Good evening, everyone. First of all, thanks for joining the webinar, especially on a Friday evening. Really sorry for this, for the date and time. I am sure this is not the best time, for you guys to join a webinar. That too on a seemingly boring topic, but hopefully, we'll try to make it interactive, and I would, try to answer as many questions as possible. So I won't strictly stick to slides, but I will ensure that I keep enough time for you guys to ask you questions. Right. A quick introduction. My name is Vishal Agarwal. I'm a senior director in Cognizant's data science practice. I have been in the analytics / consulting space for close to 20 years now, and I've been with Cognizant for 9 years in their analytics and data science practice. Yeah, so that's before that I know I was in consulting as well, and I've done my BTech from IIT BHU and my MBA from IIM Lucknow, but that was long back. So a brief about me, and I guess. Okay, great. So guys, once again, thanks for joining, and I'll start the session. So as you would know, the topic of in case I'm not audible at any point of time, if my voice is fading, please just let me know. Okay. So yeah, so as you would know, the topic of the webinar today is data analytics versus data science, and the reason I chose this topic is that this is a question which I hear very often from people, especially since I'm now a part of Cognizant data science practice. What is the difference between data science and analytics? Is it the same? Is it just a new name for the data analytics? Why do we have a different practice? And so and so forth, right? So that's the reason I thought that I'm sure a lot of you guys are analytics professionals. Some of you may already be data scientists or aspiring data scientists. So I thought it would be a useful topic to discuss and share my point of view. Again, it's just my point of view. I'm not saying that's the correct point of view, but my point of view on where I think the analytics world is heading. What is the space for data science, and is there what is the difference, if at all, between data science and analytics, right? So that's what I'm trying to cover in the topic. So in terms of the agenda, what I'll cover in this session today is first start off with key trends in analytics, where the analytics world is heading, talking about what we call democratization of analytics, and how analytics is transitioning from the periphery to the core. I'll then talk about the data science space. That's again another trend of analytics. Is it a really different from analytics? If so, how is it different? Then what is the potential for data science in the market? And if any one of you wants to write the data science wave, then how can you write the data science wave? So that broadly is what I'll cover in this session today. Right. So jumping. So coming to the key trends in analytics. So before we even talk about analytics, the first key trend really is about data, right? As we know, data is now everywhere. Earlier decisions which were taken, on gut feeling or on intuition are now driven by data, and we don't even realize that we are actually using data for making a decision. And it's everywhere. If I from things like even simple things like Google Maps, which is all driven by data, or some purchasing something, or some booking a cab, or some booking a ticket. Anything and everything, is driven by data. There's data at the background, which is optimizing my solution, which is providing me a better alternative route, or an alternative price, or an alternative vendor. So all my decision making, which is initially like for example, if I was driving, I would just go by instinct and say, okay, this would be better. Now it's no longer driven by instinct; it's driven by data, right? So data has really transformed each and everything in our lives. It's transformed everything we do, and the reason for that really is that because now we have really become a data-driven economy, right? And with the data, and to succeed in the data-driven economy, it's important that we keep abreast with the changes which are happening in the data-driven economy, and so we should know what the changes are, and we should try to move along with those changes in the economy, right? So the first key trend or theme which we're talking about in analytics really is the democratization of analytics, right? Again, I'll explain each of these in more detail in the subsequent slides. So the first key trend we're talking about is democratization of analytics. The second one is embedding analytics into the client's operating model. And the third one is really the data science base, where analytics, advanced analytics is gradually moving into data science base, right? So let's now do a deep dive of each of these areas. So what do we mean by democratization of analytics, right? So if I step back some time back, right, maybe say 10 years or 15 years back, right? At that time, I guess a lot of you guys are very young, not old as me, but so you wouldn't probably remember or know about department, but in a lot of companies, say 10, 15 years back, there was an MIS department, right? Management Information Services Department. That's what it was called, and they were the sole custodians of all the data of this company, right? So whether it was ERP data, whether it was sales data, transaction data, these are the guys who used to pull out some reports from some tables and generate some MIS for the management, for the sales team, or for the marketing team and all that, right? So these were the guys these were the only guys who are actually using data. These are the only guys who are actually doing in some sense you could say analytics, but it was mostly reporting and pulling data from various tables and presenting it together, right? So that was where analytics was very centralized. It was in the hands of few people, and it was done in a very limited way, right? So that was 15 years back, and today the scenario has completely changed, right? Today we have we like I talked about data, it's everywhere now, whether it's a smart building, whether it's customer experience, whether it is Facebook, Twitter, the social social network, whether it is fitness devices, whether it's a mobile, whether it's employee to employee interaction, whether it's energy, whether it's manufacturing, anywhere and everywhere you have data, right? And each point where there is data, there is some sort of analysis being done by someone, right? Like I gave the example of Google Maps, I give the example of your Ubers and all that. So now analytics, which is now no longer in the purview or within a specific department in a company which is doing or using analytics. Right now it's very widespread. Everybody is using analytics in some form or the other. Everybody is generating reports. Everybody is generating insights. Some people are also doing more complex analytics, but the fact is that it's now it's like a democracy, right? It's democratized. The data, the analytics is now available to a lot more people. It is used by a lot more people, and it is and a lot of better decisions and better outcomes are being driven because it's now more democratic, right? So that's that's one of the trends which we are seeing, democratization of data. This also is because the other thing related to democratization of data really also is that the other thing which is happening is that there's a lot of dependency of interaction. There's also a lot of interaction between various systems and subsystems. What we mean by that, if you talk about a social network, right? Facebook. So you connect with various people on Facebook. That again generates a lot of data for a lot of people. Who is an influencing in that group? Who are his peers? Who are his friends? What are the friends buying? What are the likes and dislikes? All that data is captured somewhere. All the data can be used in some way by marketers or product companies to actually design products or to sell stuff around you. Forget about people-to-people interaction. There's a lot of interaction between devices themselves, right? So you must have all heard of IoT, right? Internet of Things. So there are talks about how. Yeah. So like I said, so while people-to-people connect, obviously is one type of dependency. Another type of dependency is also between devices. And IoT, Internet of Things, is something which is really in vogue right now. You see it everywhere. You see a lot of companies talking about it, and and working towards it. Whether you're talking about a self-driven car, the Google car and all that, which have a lot of sensors there, which have a lot of which take data from the roads, which take the data from traffic lights, take the data from various other aspects, combine that intelligently, or whether it's devices talking to each other, a sensor versus a phone and all that. So so the complexity and the requirement of data is increasing multifold, and that's where it's not only enough to have data at the endpoint, but also look at the relationships and dependency of various devices, various ecosystems, and see how analytics and insights can be driven at that level as well, right? Uh, this is obviously leading to a transformation in the analytics space as well, right? So, like I said, traditionally, if I talk about analytics 1.0, which was so-called traditional analytics, that was very descriptive. It was just mostly reporting MIS from internally sourced data and restricted within the organization. Then we had the wave of big data, where companies set up huge big data environments to process larger amounts of data in a fast pace and all that. To the stage where we are moving towards what we call a data economy, where we are not only trying to capture all the data, because it's not possible to capture the data, but we're trying to use the entire data set which is there, whether it's within the organization or outside the organization, using that at the point it's being generated to come up with seamless and integrated integrated data, to come up with seamless and better outcomes, better insights, and better results, right? So this is where the data economy is really moving, where like I said, things which are really driving it was democratization of analytics. It's being driven by the need and the requirement for analytics at more general level. It's required. Being driven by the need to have analytics at the point of interaction between people and devices, or people and people, or devices and devices. So that really is driving the analytics transformation, where it's really moving into a pure data economy, right? Right. And obviously, if we again, another way of really looking at the way analytics is really evolving. Again, this is probably a different representation of the same concept which I'm talking about. Really is that it's moving up the value chain. The complexity obviously is also increasing in terms of the data, in terms of the tools required to handle it, in terms of the systems required to generate those sort of things. So that is increasing, but obviously the value which people are deriving out of it is also increasing, right? If you look at it, you have the reporting at the bottom moves on to descriptive analysis, predictive analysis, prescriptive analysis, but still this is mostly in the domain of structured data, right? Whereas as we move upwards to in this skill, you'll see as we move towards as we add more unstructured data as well, that's where we get into the realm of data form. But again, I'll talk about that later in the thing. But just wanted to showcase how as the complexity is increasing in terms of the analytics which we're driving, the value which organizations, the value which people are getting also improves and increases exponentially. Right? The second part I was talking about key theme is really about how analytics is moving from the periphery of an organization into the center, right? So what we really mean by that, again, if you look at some years back, the analytics division was embedded within the IT division. It was a small part within the IT division, again, part of the MIS team, which is generating the report. Then it moved out into the business function. So within the marketing function, you had an analytics team. Within the finance function, you had an analytics team. Within the operations function, you had an analytics team. So each function had a small analytics team which was doing some work for them, right? It's now moved to a stage where it's moved where it's available to customers, and that's where where we talk about Google Maps, or where we talk about your mobile applications and mobile apps and all that. That's where it's moved to the customer, where the customer has the ability to process and use some of these analytics. The future 2020 is where where it will be available at the device level. What we really mean by that is that where the IoT will be fully available, right? Right now, a lot of the IoT projects are in play. Again, example of the Google car and all that, but they have not really come mainstream. 2020 is when we'll see a lot of those devices talking to each other, taking decisions on their own without any human intervention at all. All of it will be driven by algorithms. All of it will be driven by data. All of it will be driven by analytics, right? Another thing, if you really look at the graphic at the bottom, really is that in the earlier time, analytics, the business process was at the center, and you had the analytics capabilities, supporting it. Again, if you take the example of marketing function, you had the marketing function at the center, and for example, you had a customer retention and retention and acquisition capability at one end. You would have another would have customer loyalty program, another would be a customer campaign analysis and all that. So those would be various analytical capabilities which would be supporting the marketing function, right? Again, this is changing where the analytics capability is now coming into is now becoming the core, and a lot of companies are succeeding because they have made analytics their core and improved and put the business process around it. So whether we talk about Netflix, which completely revolutionized the way videos or movies were sold online, to Uber or to Flipkart or Amazon, all of them have really changed the way things really work out, where they put analytics at the center of it and put the business processes around it. For example, Amazon has started, in some zip codes in the US, they started with a delivery time of 2 hours of some products, right? Now, that would not have been possible if they had gone with the traditional way of keeping the business process at the center and trying to address some parts of the problem through analytics capability, right? Here, what they have really done is put analytics at the center, identified what customers, what SKUs, what things are bought by customers on a frequent basis, and created the business process around it. So they have mapped the customers around that. They're on the basis of the data. They've mapped the SKUs on the basis of the data. They've mapped the value which they're getting out of that on the basis of data, and then they have launched this. So that's where this is a classical example of moving away from analytics from the periphery to the core, and this is what is really delivering a lot of value to a lot of clients and organizations. Okay? But so now up till now I've really been talking about analytics, right? About the trends in analytics and how things are changing, how things are moving, how they're becoming democratized, how they're moving from the periphery to the core. But obviously the topic of today's discussion was data science and analytics, right? So now, so where does data science come in? So this is where we're really talking about data science, where despite all the things which I've talked about so far, where things are moving towards granular level, moving towards moving data and analytics at the hands of the consumer and all that. But what has still been seen is that even now, even in today's world, almost 90% of the time, the analysis which is being done is done with data which reside within an organization's data warehouses or enterprise data warehouses. 90%, right? Because, by some estimates, and there's some estimates, people say that 80% of the value actually resides outside the data which is not within the traditional data sources or which is open source data. So what does this mean? This means that despite all the progress which we are talking about in analytics, despite all the changes and evolution which has happened, we still are not tapping 80% of the value of data. And why we're not doing that? We will come to that in the next slide. So why we're not doing it? That's where the data science base comes in, right? And the real challenge over here, why we are not being able to really tap it, that data analytics is limited by its scope, by its intention, by what it's trying to achieve, right? Whereas data science is something which breaks those boundaries, which tries to differentiate itself from data analytics in some of these ways, right? And if I just look at, and if I just do the comparison here, right? if I look at, and I'll start from the bottom, right? If you look at the type of data in data analytics, the data is very high quality because it is mostly structured data, and it is mostly certain because it is data within organizations, enterprise with data warehouse. Whereas if you look at data sciences, it tries to look at unstructured data. It tries to pull in unstructured data as well. This data is of low quality. Obviously, if you're talking about pulling data from a tweet or from a blog or from any other source, it's not of the same quality as a structured data. The speed of data, again, because in a unstructured data, a tweet, a blog, or interaction between devices is generated at a high velocity. So this is high speed data versus low speed data for data analytics. In terms of variety, there is an unlimited variety of data which data science tries to address unstructured data of all types. Whether it could even be log files from a device, it could be log files from a sensor, it could be tweets, blogs, it could be PDF files, it could be images, it could be videos, right? So the variety of data which data science tries to tackle is infinitely more complex than what data analytics would try to do. The size of the data, again, most data warehouses, of structured data would be in GBs or a few TBs. Whereas for data sciences, it would be, it would start from TBs and even go up to petabytes. The outcome, again, in terms of learning, data analytics, has a very shallow learning. They use mostly, I would say, relatively simple algorithms. If you look at, the algorithms, 90% of the algorithms today are, logistic, linear and linear regression and logistic regression, right? Most of the models are built around that. Whereas data sciences really looks at deep learning, it looks at artificial intelligence, it looks at neural networks, it looks at bringing using a lot of complex algorithms and mathematical models, which have remained mostly in labs and R&D. Data science really tries to bring those algorithms, those models into business use and see if we can derive more and better value out of that compared to the old areas. Another key difference really in between data analytics and data science really is that data analytics tries to focus on a problem which is known. The customer gives you a problem. Okay, I want to find out the ROI of my marketing campaign. That's a typical data analytics problem. In data sciences, typically the problem is also not known. So all we have is a huge set of data, which the customer says, this huge set of data, I don't even know what to do with this data. So a lot of data science is about discovering what the problem is. Not only discovering what the solution is, but also discovering what the problem is. Right? So that's a big difference. Data science, data analytics is threads a known path. Data science is more exploratory by nature. It tries to find patterns out of unknowns. It tries to solve problems which are not known. Right. So another way of to illustrate that further. If you really look at this, right, while data analytics, obviously there's some overlap between data analytics and data sciences, right? But traditionally, data analytics focuses more on the descriptive and the diagnostic part of the analysis, whereas data sciences tends to focus more on the predictive and the prescriptive part of analytics, right? So, to take one of the examples which we have listed here, right? If I talk about, for example, inventory, right? So a typical descriptive analysis would be, like if you say, what is my product inventory throughout my global supply chain? And this is just, just querying from a table to just get out the number of what is my value of inventory at that point of time. Purely descriptive. There's no manipulation of the data. There's no analysis which I'm really looking at it. The next stage of that would be, somebody asks, what are the differences in inventory levels throughout my global supply chain? Here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a root cause analysis. I'm trying to do a diagnostic to see what are the differences in inventory. So this is a classical case of a root cause analysis. All this would typically fall under the realm of data analytics. As we move to more complexity, right? For example, what will affect my global supply chain in the next 6 months. Here we are going with predictive part, right? We are trying to predict in the next 6 months, what is my inventory outlook going to look like, right? So that really moves into data science space. And then as we move to even more complexity, how do we optimize our global supply chain? Where we are moving to the prescriptive mode. We're not only predicting the outcome, we're not only doing a root cause analysis, we're also giving a recommendation or prescribing what should be the action taken to prevent or to optimize my supply chain, right? So this is really how data science differs from analytics, right? Again, just to repeat myself, data analytics more descriptive and diagnostic, whereas data sciences is more predictive and prescriptive. Right. I'll skip this slide. I think we talked about it in some sense. So I'll straight away jump to this. So okay. So now that we have established that there is some difference between data analytics and data sciences. So but we've still not really defined what is data science, right? So data science is really a discipline of extracting again, I'm just reading the dictionary definition of this of extracting knowledge from often complex and voluminous data in order to improve decision making. So the key over here really is there's a couple of key things over here. One, it is from complex data sources. So like I said, it is not only through structured data sources, it is from unstructured data sources, right? Second important thing is that we use a lot of more complicated algorithms, techniques to actually extract the data, right? So that's another key thing where because the data is complex, because it is unstructured, because we have to pull data from images, from videos, from PDFs. Pulling that data and manipulating that data is an infinitely more complex process. So that's what brings the complexity. And the third part really, is then once I have the data extracted, once I have that data, how do I manipulate that data? There again, data scientist focuses on machine learning. It focuses on AI. It focuses on neural networks. Not because these are fancy things, but because with these superior algorithms, you can process larger amounts of data. You can make self-learning algorithms, and see the accuracy of these models is much more compared to simple linear regression. Because linear regression, what you're really trying to do, you try to limit the number of variables, because as you increase the number of variables, your ability to process them really decreases to a large extent. Whereas in data science, with using more complex data sets, more complex infrastructure, you don't really need to reduce the number of variables, right? You can process n number of variables, and because you're processing n number of variables, the ability or the probability of getting a superior outcome also increases. So that's really the key difference between data science and analytics. And moving on to then, who is a data scientist, or what are the skill sets required for a data scientist, right? So if you really look at this, these three circles over here, right? So a data scientist is a person who requires three key skill sets. He needs to be a computer scientist, needs to have good statistical skills, and he needs to have domain expertise. Right. So the intersection of all these three is what really constitutes a data scientist. Against that, if you really look at for example, a business and if you really look at what a business analyst is, so basically typically a business analyst would have a domain expertise. He would have statistical skills, but he may not have necessarily be good in computer science skills. What we mean by that is a typical business analyst would typically use would use a limited amount of data sets. He would again, the data set would be provided to him by somebody in the IT department who would be building the IT data warehouse or the IT BI platform. You would pull that data from there. You would use one technique or one tool. Maybe you would be very proficient in SQL, or maybe proficient in SAS, or maybe in R, and he would process that data, right? Whereas the difference between a data scientist would be that a data scientist would not rely on somebody else to pull that data from him, because the data is not in one place for anybody in the IT department to pull the data for him. He would have to write his own scripts, in various, sometimes in SQL, sometimes in SAS, sometimes in R, sometimes in Python, sometimes in Spark, to actually pull the data into a meaningful form. You would need to process that data in a that larger data set itself. You again using a lot of techniques. You would need to build models, validate those models using uh, uh, using algorithms, machine learning algorithm, all that, and you would need to then deliver those outcomes or those results or those insights in a language which the customer would understand. Or in other words, we also need to be a very good storyteller, because insights or analysis or building a complex model without being able to understand the domain or without understanding the business context is of no use to the customer or to anybody else, right? So data scientist also needs to be a very good storyteller, where he is not only good at extracting data or using computer science skills to process large amount of data. He's not only good at building models using his statistical skills, but he also has a very good domain expertise to actually make sense out of the analysis, to actually make sense of what the outcomes are, and to actually present those outcomes in a language which the customer understands to the customer. So that really is what a data scientist is. It's not a data scientist cannot be a team of two people where one person just does the computer science work, another person does the statistical skills work, and a domain expertise is provided by the third person. For a person to be a true data scientist, all those three skills of a computer scientist, of having statistical skills and having domain expertise has to reside in the same person. That really is what a data scientist really is, right? So now the question is, now that we have defined data science, we have defined what is the difference between data science and analytics, and what are the key attributes of a data scientist. The next question really is that I know a lot of the people in this session are people who already are doing analytics work, or maybe some of you may already be doing some data science work, or aspiring to be a data scientist. So the question really is, how can one ride the data science wave, right? Or right. The first question is, why should you be a data scientist? Do you really need to be a data scientist? Okay, somebody may say that I am a business analyst, a data analyst. I have been doing analytics for 5 years, 6 years. I'm really good at my job. I have a great understanding of what business is about, and I am very happy being a data analyst. Why do I need to be a data scientist, right? So the first thing, why we really want to be a data scientist is some quotes which I've out, or some data which I've out here. So one is, a lot of you must have heard this quote. It's been repeated very often in the press, quoted by a lot of people. It's called Harvard Business Review in its 2012 edition called data scientist as the sexiest job in the 21st century. Then the other reports, McKinsey said by 2018 there will be 140 to 190,000 unfilled data science positions. Another report by IDC says that there will be a shortage of 100,000 data scientists by 2020. And this graph at the bottom really shows from 2012 to 2016 the percentage growth rate in data science jobs in the market, right? So from all these parameters, we really see that there's a huge buzz about data science, and it's not only buzz. Obviously, these are all very premium or very reputed research houses or research publications which have really weighed it out. Plus, you have this data on the growth potential in terms of jobs for data science, which clearly shows that growth in data science is really exponential, right? But again, if this is not data is not enough, there is more, right? If you really look at so there's some more analysis, right? So why should you still be a data scientist, right? So again, more surveys, more publications and reports. First, in terms of job satisfaction, so there is a survey done across a large population of people on data scientists in the US and in other countries of the world, where the job satisfaction score for data science was one of the highest among all job categories which have been surveyed by them. So obviously there's a huge amount of job satisfaction people get out of it. The second survey talks about the skill gap. So while a lot of people are being trained on data scientists, while a lot of people are moving from analytics to data science, or just jumping with data science, still by 2016 it is projected that the gap between demand and supply will be as high as 83% globally for data scientists. And finally, if you really look at the salary, data scientists are among the highest paying jobs globally. Again, if you compare it against a subset of a lot of job profiles, you really see that data scientists really stand out. I don't know how many of you, recently there was a news item in the Times of India as well about how highly paid, data scientists are. Again, I know some of the numbers quoted there were, a little dubious in the sense, it is a very, very high number. But the fact remains that, data science really is an area which is really growing in terms of requirement, in terms of the demand for it, and also in terms of the salaries. They're really, really highly paid. Both in India, they're very highly paid, and in the US and globally, data scientists are among the highest paid jobs in the world today. So, okay. So very quickly, moving on to how can you really write the data science base, right? So if you really look at again some of the key trends in data science, right? You'll see that machine learning and a lot of algorithms really are becoming very, very important for analysis. The processing of large amounts of data is becoming very important. The ability to make sense out of models or make sense out of data is very, very important. So all these things really point to if you really look at from a person who really wants to become a data scientist, what should he do? The first thing is he needs to be inquisitive, right? If you are satisfied with with the model which is being built without really thinking why have I built this model? How is this model going to be used? What is the advantages of this model? You'll never be a data scientist. The other thing is, quite often, when we, use tools like, say, for example, SAS or SQL, we want to run a regression, we just write a proc and say, okay, yeah, I run a regression. Or if I want to do an optimization, I run a proc, I say I've done the optimization, right? And, there could be people who are, building, optimization models or regression models for years, 3 years, 4 years, they're building models. And how are they building models? You ask them, how are you building models? Oh, I run a proc in SAS, right? The problem with, if you just limit yourself to writing a proc in SAS is that will not make you a data scientist. To become a data scientist, what you really need to know is you need to understand the maths and science behind the optimization. How is that optimization model working? What is the logic behind it? What is the way it is optimizing? What are the parameters it's optimizing on? What is the statistics behind that? Right? That is very, very important. Any model you build, and again, I'm not saying you don't use procs. Obviously, if there's a command and there's a program, you would use it. But always try to find out the math. What is the logic? What is the logic that if it's happening, why is it happening? Right? That is very, very important. That inquisitiveness is the first thing which is very, very important. The second thing which is very important is, again, do not limit yourself to a particular language. If you are working in SAS, and you may have again a lot of years of experience in SAS or SQL or anything or right? Don't limit yourself to one language, because it's important that like I said, the third attribute of being a data scientist is also having computer science skills, right? It's very important to not be dependent on a language, but know a range of languages. Some of the common ones are SQL, Python, Spark, R, and every day there's a new language which is coming in. Some of them are open source, some of them are proprietary. Each language has its advantage. Each language has an advantage in a particular situation, right? For example, for text mining, right? R is a very powerful language in text mining. If you really want to use it, much more powerful than SAS, right? So because of that, if you are limited to only one type of language, whatever program you're running or whatever code you're writing or algorithm you're developing, they will be suboptimal because you are not using the language which could have been more powerful in that situation. Same thing with algorithm. If you are restricting yourself to logistic regression or linear regression only, again, I'm not saying that logistic regression or linear regression are bad. They are good, and most of the time they are the most appropriate models for development, right? But the problem is if you are limiting yourself to only a couple of algorithms is when the requirement comes for you to really think out of the box, where it's required for you to evaluate, develop a series of models and then pick up the best model out of all those models, you will not be able to do that because your exposure or experience is limited to a couple of models, right? So that really is where again you would be restricted in your growth. So if you really want to be a data scientist, don't limit yourself to one model, two models. Try multiple models, try an ensemble of models, and then select the model which is giving you the best output, right? That really becomes very critical. Now, some of you may say, I'm working in a company XYZ. In that company, SAS is the only tool which is used. So how do I learn the other tools? The good thing is, because data science and analytics is such a big buzzword because there's so much demand. There are a whole host of courses there, both online and in universities, in colleges, which you can enroll for, where you can pick up these languages. A lot of these courses are also free. Whether you talk about Coursera or whether you talk about a lot of these other universities and courses, online universities and courses. A lot of these things are free. Some of them are paid, but again, paid there's a nominal amount for them. So there's a huge amount of opportunity for you to learn. So there's no dearth of opportunity, even outside your job. Even if you are working on SAS in your day job and all that, that doesn't stop you from learning R. That doesn't stop you from learning Python. That doesn't stop you from learning another algorithm over and beyond what you're doing. Because in data science, because it's evolving so fast, because it's something which has just started off, there's a lot to learn, right? And you need to, that hunger to learn is something which is the most important thing, for anybody who wants to be a data scientist. You really excel. He needs to be inquisitive. He needs to learn new stuff. He needs to learn the math, logic, science behind whatever he's doing, and he needs to be able to convey that in the proper manner to clients. So that means he needs to have very good communication skills, written skills, presentation skills to really explain whatever whatever analysis is done to a client in a meaningful way. So again, in terms of continuing with the data science way, so new techniques, like I talked about, new techniques, new algorithms, which are gaining a lot of currency in today's world. Like things like cognitive analytics, prescriptive analytics, in-memory analytics, deep learning. These are all terms which again, these are all algorithms or maths which are not new. The mathematics behind this was probably written in labs 30 years, 40 years back, right? But what has changed, what data science has really changed is that all these complex algorithms, all these complex mathematics which had remained in labs or R&D facilities, it's now started using these algorithms and these maths in business problems, right? And it has really led to very, very significant and beneficial results, right? You've heard about IBM Watson, defeating, you've heard about computers defeating man in chess and all that. So now all these algorithms have been able to mimic, the human brain to a large extent, and what they have really tried to do is to really think the way a person would, and because of their ability to do that, they obviously are coming up with better and more accurate predictions, more accurate outcomes, and more better solutions for everyone, right? So these are things which are really picking up in data science. In a period of time, we'll see that these become while these are still restricted to a few sets of people who are using this, but you'll see the pace things are moving, that within a year or 2 years, these will become mainstream, and there'll be something else which will will become which will become the cutting edge thing in the next few years. So it's very, very important that you continuously upgrade yourself, continuously move up the value curve, and scale up your ability to to use and execute these complex stuff. Right. Again, I already in a sense talked about it. So in terms of the attributes of data science, like I said, obviously one is the advanced statistical analysis. So whether you're talking about complex algorithms, learning techniques, hypothesis testing, and all that. So that's the first part. The second part is domain understanding. This is very, very critical. Like I said, just being a good modeler serves no purpose, right? A modeler also has to be able to convey his insights, his outcomes to the client, or to whoever is the consumer of this analysis in a meaningful way. So it's important to be a good storyteller. It's important to have a good domain understanding. It's important to have good communication skills. And the third part really is the data architecture management, where the tools and languages also come into play. So the common languages, like I talked about, R, SAS, Alteryx, Python, Spark, and then you have your big data infrastructure, MapReduce, and NoSQL databases, and all that. So these are these are really things which are really, really important. There's a lot of opportunity, like I said, to learn these tools on your own, and this is what really is required to have those three complementary skills we talked about: computer science skills, domain skills, and statistical skills. Finally, in terms of what skills, again, just sort of a repeat of the previous slide, but probably giving a little more context of what specific skill sets you really require to be a good data scientist. And this is basically an entry level data scientist. Person is just getting the so you have things like the coding tools, R, Python, SQL, Hadoop, data mining, visualization. You have your vendor tools. You have your math, quant, and stats modeling. You have your communication documentation skills. So these are things which you need to be an expert on, and then various other things like modeling and all that. Modeling, that you gradually pick up over time, right? It's not like you need to be an expert in all the algorithm techniques, when you start up. But that would really become central to you as you get more and more into data science, right? But data science is really catching up. It's really very, very topical. It's really differentiating itself from data science, from data analytics in the type of problem it addresses, in the way it addresses it, and in terms of also the opportunities which are coming in data science. So for anyone of you who's really interested in data science, it's a very good place to be. It's really exciting world. The predictions are even better. The boom is likely to continue at least for the next 10 years, if not more. So all you really need to really succeed is the inquisitiveness, the willingness to learn, and the hunger to think beyond outside the box, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, data science, a lot of the problems are not defined. So sometimes you need to define the problem itself, which requires a lot of out of the box thinking, a lot of creativity. So that also is another very important attribute for data science, right? With that, I think we can open for questions. And that's all I said.
Okay, thank you so much, Vishal. So how we'll do this is that you can type your questions in the chat box, and then we'll open up the mic for those that want to ask questions. I think you would want to ask what kind of people really go for being into data analytics. Would they be engineers or statisticians?
Would they be engineers or?
Would they be from statistics?
So both. For data science, you need good computer science skills. Like I said, you also need very good statistics skills. So if somebody is from a stats background, he would obviously need to pick up some skills on computer science. Whereas if somebody is from an engineering background, he may not have a lot of he may have some understanding of stats, but he may not have a lot of understanding of stats. So he would probably need to pick up a bit on stats, right? So it's both, right? A stats guy would need to pick up computer science skills. A computer science engineering guy would need to pick up stats skills, right? Again, like I said, all those courses are available online, so you can take them. But equally, stats guy and engineering guy, both of them are equally important for
Okay. So I'll open the mic up for Ashish, who has a question. Ashish, can you ask your question now?
Yeah, hi, Ashish here. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, the same question again. Apart from statistics, what should I mostly focus on R or SAS? Should I focus more on R or SAS?
So okay, so if you don't know R or SAS at this point, then R is a better language at this point for two reasons. One, R is an open source language, so you don't need any licensing and all that. You can download it free from the net, and you can take courses and learn it. That's the first part. The second thing is even worldwide, R is really picking up very fast. Most companies are moving towards R. One, because it's cheaper, and second, because it is in a lot of areas it's more powerful than SAS, right? So if between R and SAS, I would strongly recommend you go for R.
Yeah, and learning the language is one thing, but how to get into the mold of data analytics and science, like the methodologies, the predictive modeling, and the predictive analysis. For that, where should I check for references?
Yeah, so there are a lot of online competition. So I don't know if you've heard of Kaggle. Kaggle, they provide data science and analytics case studies, right? Kaggle. Then there are a lot of hackathons which are happening on analytics and data science. Companies like HackerOr, HackerRank.
Hello, I checked on the Titanic solution. Yeah. You have something for Titanic or something.
Right, exactly. So they keep
Data Camp is good. Data Camp. Should I talk in between?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Data Camp.
Yeah, Data Camp is good. Then there are a lot of hackathons also which are run, right? HackerOr, HackerRank. They also run a lot of hackathons. Participate in those hackathons. Again, the ones which are specific to data science and analytics. Take part in those hackathons. Again, you'll get a lot of case studies which you can solve. And you can compete and see how good your code is, and you can sort of benchmark yourself against the other people. So these are very good avenues for doing that. Apart from that, the net, if you do a search on our case studies and all that, you will find case studies. They may not be in a competition form like Kaggle, but you will find case studies which you can work on, and data sets which you can process.
Yes, I can hear you. Vishal, my question will be like, actually now I'll be completing my course SAS from the Imatricus. I'm looking for a job. So which kind of job I should look for? Like how I can start in corporate?
If you have done your analytics course, or you have done SAS training and all that. There are a lot of jobs out there for data science analytics sort of people. So go to LinkedIn, go to Naukri.com and all that. you'll see hundreds of job requirements for for people with SAS skills, for people with R skills, for people with machine learning skills. You can easily apply to them. Like the data I showed, there is a huge supply gap in the market for data scientists today. So go to LinkedIn, go to these Naukri.coms or Monster.com. I'm sure you should easily find a good job.
Yes, sir. Just because actually I also asked my trainer, and she told me that you can't get directly into data science. You have to start with from data analytics.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I agree. Like I said, data science is the upper end of data analytics. So if you don't have prior analytics experience, yes, that's right. You need to move to analytics first before you move to data science. But that's fine, right? Analytics is also is good. It's not like analytics is not booming. There's a lot of new stuff which is happening in analytics as well. Once you get into analytics, then like I said, you keep on learning, you keep on innovating, and you keep on thinking out of the box. You can move into data science. With 1 or 2 years of experience in analytics and good credentials across domains and all that, there will be any number of data scientist companies which will be willing to pick you up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So actually, one more thing, just because after doing this SAS, I'm also planning to do R and Python. So it will add value on my career for this, or
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Both R and Python are really powerful languages, and like I said, the more you know, the better. In data science, or in analytics for that matter, there's no one who's an expert. Everybody is a learner. So the only difference is between a good person and a good data scientist and a bad or a poor data scientist is the one who has learned more. So yeah, so learn more, it will definitely help.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we open up the question for Mr. Ajit Mishra. Can you hear us? Ajit?
I have a good statistical background. I am working as a black belt. And I have experience in UK and US insurance processes.
Okay.
I have started learning R and I am about to complete. So but I don't have any technical background as in computer learning or something like this that you have recently explained.
No, that's not important. When I meant computer background, I really meant ability to learn languages like R, Python. So if you already know R, Python, or SAS, so that's fine, right? You don't necessarily have to be a computer science expert to actually be a data scientist. What I really meant was you need to be need to pick up some of these languages like R, Python, SAS. Be really good in that. And some ability to process data, but again, you can process it in R and SQL and all that. So I think that should be fine. That's not
Okay, we'll open up our question next for Jayashree. Jayashree, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jayashree. I want to know the learning path which someone has to take for someone who do not have a prior analytical work experience. You have tools, languages like SAS, Python, R, then machine learning, then Hadoop. All these are there. What is the stage? Where should we start and how we need to build on it?
So I would say start with one language first. Start with one language. Pick up whichever one you think is most closest to what you can learn or which is available. Right, pick up that and start building. Start working on some algorithms. Right, and like I said, start participating in some of these competitions, Kaggle or the hackathon to get some experience in modeling and predictive modeling and all that. So do that. So that would be a start, right? One language, some algorithms, whether it's even if it's linear, linear or logistic regression. Start with that. At least you'll understand the mechanics behind the modeling, right? You'll understand the statistics behind that. Start with that. Once you're comfortable with that, then move to the next levels of complexity, whether it's in terms of algorithm or becomes the next language. But I would say start with one language and start with a simple linear logistic regression. But like I said, even if you're building a linear logistic regression, don't just be satisfied if you just write a one code, one line code and say, okay, now I know linear regression. Understand the math and science behind it. That's very important. Unless you understand the math and science behind it, you will not be able to learn new things, right? So keep that in mind.
Okay, I have one more question. On LinkedIn and other portals, I could see that most of the companies ask for data scientists who have some 4 to 5 years of experience. So how about the opening for a fresher in the field of data scientist in India?
So I would say start small. Start if you have, again, it depends on what type of experience you have. If you have absolutely no experience in even in BI, for example, even Tableau and some of these tools, they have some analytics components, right? But if you have absolutely no experience in even a BI tool, then you would obviously need to first learn some BI tool. In your current job, if it's possible to take up some visualization tool like Tableau or ClickView or some of these, pick that up, make that a part of your job, and then gradually move on. Because yeah, you're right. Nobody's going to even if you just do a course, nobody's going to, and you have absolutely no experience in any data modeling or in any data handling, right? Whether it's for a BI tool or whether it's for reporting or whether it's for anything, it's unlikely that somebody would go to give you a data science position, right? So start small, depending on where you are. If you have not done, start with data pulling, start with BI tools, move to languages like R, move to simple algorithms, and then over a period of time you can switch to data science.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I had one question. I actually have prior experience on SAS. Because I've worked with an organization, I have a 10 years experience. So I've worked on SAS before. Now I'm taking a data science course from Ematicus. And the problem I see is that I do not have an analytics background at all. I'm a total fresher when it comes to analytics. So since the schedule teaches SAS first, so my current schedule is going pretty fine. I mean, because they're teaching SAS. I can understand everything and I'm grasping anything. But before we enter the predictive modeling, that is the actual analytical, phase of the course. So is there any, preparations that I need to do in order for me to not have any problems in, doing the course or completing it? Or so is there any reading material or are there any, reference materials that you can suggest? Because I want to have maximum benefit out of this course. And so in order to do that, and since I am a fresher in analytics, it would be great if you could just throw some light on, what I should do before we move ahead.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge which people face who don't have a prior analytics experience is in stats, right? So they pick up languages fast, they pick up the modeling fast, but stats is where a lot of people struggle, right? So I don't know, how good or bad your stats is, but if you do not have very strong stats background, so though it may be covered in the Imaticus curriculum as well, but I would suggest spend time on picking up something on stats. And again, you can find out there are a lot of books on stats, or you could look at online material which is available from Harvard and some of these universities. But that I would recommend, because stats is one area where people who do not have prior exposure to it really struggle a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. So we're out of time, but we take 2 more questions. I think Raja Venkatesh has a question. I'm opening up the mic. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yeah, we can.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, currently I'm doing a R course, and is it enough to get a job in a business analytics, or I need to do a SAS and a SPSS course too?
So R is fine. Again, one language is, to start off, one language is fine. So if you have done an R course, that's fine. But also, like I said, along with R, you also need to brush up your stats and your, modeling skills. So if you have that already, that's great. You don't need to learn all the languages right now. R, I think, is flexible enough, it's good enough. So if you have done that, but if you are a little weak on stats, brush up stats. If you're weak on some of the machine learning techniques, brush up on that. Otherwise, I think R by itself is fine. You don't need to pick up the others right now.
Yeah, I'm fresher only. I don't have any experience related to business analytics or statics or anything. Now only I just started to learn R, and this is enough to get a job. So I don't know about anything.
Yeah, the other thing, pick up some courses on stats as well. Stats would also help you. I think that is very critical, right? R with stats is important. Domain can come on later because you're just starting off. So I wouldn't say that you spend a lot of time in learning everything together right now. But along with R, if you can brush up your stat skills, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. And if I combine with the SAS also, and I'm doing one more course with the SAS, means which will be helpful to me to get a job, or else can do a stats course.
I would suggest do stats because if you do R SAS but you're weak on stats, it will still be difficult to get a job because a lot of the questions in the interviews and all that would be around stats as well. So if you're already doing R, then rather than stats, I would say pick up stats.
Yeah.
Stats.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishal.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so the final question is from Rahul. So he asks us, how can data science help executives and mid-level managers take decisions?
Right. So okay, so the reason is okay. So let me give an example, right? If you look at if you look at the typical way marketing was done, right? What you have to do, again I'm assuming that some people know analytics over here. You typically do a, so I think how it improves the decision making is that through using structured and unstructured data and using data science techniques, it's really possible to actually identify a person uniquely, right? If you look at marketing, right, what does the marketing person do in analytics? They try to segment the entire population into groups, and for a certain group of people, they find out what is the best offering of best products which should be sold to this group, right? Based on the behavior of that group in terms of their demographics, based on their behavior, based on their spending patterns and all that, right? So they identify that group based on data analytics and try to give a product that this product will be the most appropriate or will give me the highest ROI, right? How data science would make it better than that would be data science actually not only uses the standard data like demographic data or spending data and all that. It will also use unstructured data. When I say unstructured data, it also use, for example, his Facebook data. It also uses Twitter data. It also uses his blog data, right? From there, it will get a better idea of what his likes and dislikes are, right? So, for example, in Facebook, if he's talking about a particular product like an Apple product, or if he's a strong in his tweets, he's a strong proponent of an Apple product, right? He's a guy who likes Apple and all, right? So with this additional information, you are now reducing the size of your group, right? And you can now give a specific offer to this particular person because you now know him very well. You know his demographic data, you know his social data, you know what he buys, you know what he likes, you know what he dislikes. So once you give him an offer which is tailor-made for him, his chance of accepting that offer is very high because you've already done that analysis to really know that this person really wants this thing, right? So this is where data science comes into the play, right? Because it looks at structured data and it looks at unstructured data. It combines that to get a very I would say a unique picture of an individual or to target, right? And that is what the companies can then utilize to drive their campaign, right? This is just an example of marketing. The same thing could be applied to finance or could be applied to anything, right? Where with these unstructured data, your ability to predict the behavior of that individual or behavior of that device increases manifold. And if your prediction, if you are able to predict the behavior of that person or of that device better, the outcomes, so you can then, if you are predicting, for example, if I can predict very accurately who's going to win the IPL, right? If I can mathematically say, okay, RCB is going to win, right? And my model is 90% accurate, right? So for people who are betting on it, the amount of money they can make is definitely going to be substantially higher, right? So the reason I can do that is because my model is more superior because I've used unstructured data, structured data. I've used a lot of more sophisticated techniques to actually make a better prediction. So my chances of predicting the right outcome increase, and that obviously helps the management or the CEO of the company or whatever to make a better decision, right? So this is what data science enables.
Okay, we're out of time now. For those who have more questions, we would request you to send us an email at elearning@ematicus.com. We'll be happy to send those who attend an email, and we'll just revert back on that. The video of this webinar will be available shortly. We at Ematicus Learning would like to thank Mr. Vishal Agarwal from Cognizant for taking out his precious time for all of us. Also, on behalf of Ematicus Learning and Cognizant, we would like to thank each one of you for being part of this wonderful session. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks. I really enjoyed the session, and I hope you learned something out of it. Thanks a lot again. Bye.